I was on Peartree Green, and I was looking in the Itchen when I noticed some spots coming up. They come up Southampton water, the bombers, and they turn up the Itchen. When I see them, they were just spots, and they were getting closer, and you realise they were bombers. They came up in formation, they followed the Itchen up, they were not attacked by any aircraft, guns, they were not attacked by any fighters. Whether they were attacked by fighters after they bombed Supermarine, I don't know, but the formation of bombers stayed as a squadron. They didn't move, they kept in formation all the time. They bombed Supermarine in formation, and then they flew away, and I don't know what happened, whether they were attacked by anti-aircraft or fighters, I don't know. All I know was seeing them come up the river and bomb Supermarine.
The sirens were going as the bombs were dropping on the factory just up the road. Through waiting there, I missed the bombs actually going into probably my shelter. I couldn't see my shelter because you went up the rubble and there was all the bridge metal and that, just remained of the rubble. So I never saw my shelter after that siren went, because it had a direct hit. A little incident, I was smoking then, and he worked on the same bench, and we had this idea that if he smoked a cigarette, it would give you courage. He said, couldn't I do with a cigarette now? And I was just started smoking, and that's the best cigarette.
They were building walruses there when it started, and then they started on the first Spitfires. I used to fit the sliding hoods on the Spitfires, and the cowlings on the engine, and the oil tanks underneath. You had that job to do all the time. I was 14 then, I think. Not old enough to do any overtime. Just before they bombed it, I was transferred up to Winchester Road, Seawoods Garage, and we watched them bombing the factory from there, when I'd only just been there. So we felt a bit sort of sorry for everybody, you know what I mean? And we stood on the roof and watched the bombers come over. They came right over us, and then they bombed the Supermarine works.
It doesn't seem possible that I could look out of a window and see a bomb coming down, but I can remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. I was under a desk. I think somebody pushed me, because we could hear the planes coming.
Yes.
Yeah. Whether the air raid siren went as the planes were there, perhaps it did, yes. So he must have clattered all down those stairs and out and out, and then it could have been about, wasn't very far, I don't know how 50 yards would be, 100 yards, over the bridge, and just a little bit, this pub was just up the hill, not very far, but you could see it quite well from the bridge. We all went into this pub, and it had a deep cellar, so that was just right, yes. I don't remember the shelter being bombed and the people being killed, though. So whether that was before or after, because there was bombing still going on, because it shook this cellar.
Right.
Something went wrong, and we were actually still in the factory when the bombers came over. The first thing we knew in the Woolston factory was the guns opened fire, all the anti-aircraft guns opened fire, and quite soon afterwards the noise of the aircraft and then bombs exploding. So in the Woolston works, people took shelter under workbenches, as I did. I scrambled under a large lathe for shelter. And now not a bomb fell on that day on the Woolston Works. But in the Itchen Works, the people there heard the gunfire and began to make a dash for the shelters, which were just across the road, quite close, under the railway arch and into the work shelters. The tragedy of that was that had they stayed in the factory, many of them would have survived. But the bombs came down and caught them on their way. So they were hit crossing the road under the arch. The arch was hit, the railway arch, where some took shelter for a moment, and some reached the shelters, and the shelters were hit. And there were many deaths. Many people went up to help with digging out the people who were buried under the railway arch especially. That was all very traumatic, certainly was for me. Unbelievably, we went back to work the next morning. In the Woolston Works, everybody turned up because it was known that there was no damage. So we went back and started, and the machine started up, and I think other people, the ARP, all sorts of people had arrived to help. I think even the military people turned up with ambulances and things. So we worked through that day. And then on the Thursday, bombers came back, a more successful attack. They bombed both factories then, but people managed just in time to evacuate the Woolston Works, which was well and truly hit.